actually I get to do a lot more than I thought I would first or second year med school. I'm actually able to do a lot. It does depend a lot on who your preceptor is, your attending or resident. I actually didn't work much with attendings or residents. I worked more just one-on-one with the precepting physician, just because I'm usually in a small town. I'm not at a large hospital where there's residents and everything. And I think sometimes there you get to do a lot more. Depends how comfortable the physician is. But for example, in between my first and second year of medical school, I went on a 4-week preceptorship for rural medicine, and I was able to deliver babies. I was sewing up lacerations. I hadn't even done my surgery skills during second year med school, and I was suturing on real people. So yeah, you get to do a ton. Again, it depends on who your preceptor is and your situation, but yeah, you get to do a lot. For, I guess, delivering babies example, as a third year, maybe I would go in and the resident would check, and then if the patient had an epidural, they'd let the student check too, as long as it was okay with the patient, obviously. And I would check behind them and, say, oh, I think it's this, or whatever. So, and then some deliveries, some places I got to just stand and watch and maybe deliver the placenta, but for the most part I was gowned and gloved, and I got to do the delivery. Some deliveries actually I was doing the delivery and there was a resident right there helping me, and the OB doctor was not even gowned and gloved. They were there and ready to gown and glove if they needed to, but a lot of times they were just present, and that was a lot more independence than I thought I would have, but it's been going great, and I'm a lot less nervous now knowing that, and I trust myself a lot more, so that's good. And then as for clinic patients, example where I'm at right now, I just go in, I talk to the patient, do a history physical, I explain lab results. I feel comfortable now going over fasting labs and saying, okay, cholesterol is this, your glucose is this, and explaining, this is what normal range is, this is the impaired fasting glucose, this is diabetes, and kind of where they fall and what it means to them. So I think I have a lot of independence in the education part, but I love that part, and I'm happy to do it. And then I go out and talk to the doc and say, hey, so-and-so comes in, just give them a brief overview, and they say, okay, what do you want to do? And I'll give them my plan. And they said, okay, sounds good. And depending if it's on electronic medical records or not, I'll get to write the script out, and then the doc say, yep, I agree with this, they'll call me, student doctor or something like that, and they'll leave the room, and then I explain everything. So at this point, at the end of my 4th year, I am kind of been able to work as more independently, as independent I think as I can get as a medical student. Anyways, that was a really long answer. The first 2 years of med school, we didn't really find a church. Granted, we weren't hard looking. I don't know, I think my faith was kind of stagnant. I've always grown up going to church and I don't know, every Sunday, and just really, I think, a great relationship with God. But in medical school, I hate saying this, but I just got so busy, and God was always part of my life and my faith, but it definitely was not a priority, which I guess that's how it was. But during 3rd and 4th year, we're living with the family, our home base, in a town, and gotten involved in the church in that town, and we love it. Come home as often as we can, and we love going to church. We have a small group there, and so we go to small group on Wednesday nights and church on Sundays any time that we could get. So we definitely had time for it, and I'm just so grateful, and my faith has now continued just to grow exponentially, which is awesome. Hang out with classmates outside of school. During 1st and 2nd year is a lot easier just because everyone was pretty much on campus, and we'd see each other daily, and then there were apartments just around the school the majority of the people lived in, so it was almost like dorm living. So yeah, people hung out all the time with each other. I'd say we were kind of in the middle since we had each other. Some nights we wouldn't, people would go out together, and some nights we would just want a night to ourselves to hang out and kind of recover from the week. And other times we go out for people's birthday. That was always a fun time out. Now during 3rd and 4th year, it's a bit harder. I'm not in the town that our med school is in. Neither is John. We've been just traveling so much, and so when we do get back for a special occasion. Like I went to a friend's bachelorette party like 2 months ago, and that was awesome. Got to see all my friends. Also match day was recently, so we drove down and hung out with a bunch of our classmates then.
From where I am now, went back and kind of thought about, what did I do in high school, and what, I guess, advice I have for high schoolers who know that they want to go into medicine. So John and I brainstormed of a few things, thinking back, and what things could we have done differently, or what things did we do that helped us. And a lot of people ask about grades, and oh, my GPA is this, and oh, I got a B in chemistry, does that mean I won't go to med school, and things like that. And to be honest, grades don't really matter all that much in high school. Medical schools do not ask for your high school transcript. They won't know that you had a B or a C in any of your classes. But what grades do help are, well, what are your plans for undergrad? Where are you going to get your degree? And getting into a good school, I think, is more important than what your grades actually were in high school. They're not going to look at that. It's kind of like a new leaf you get when you get to undergrad. So if your grades aren't the best, no fear. If they are really well, really great, then hey, maybe you have figured out how you study well, and that's great too. But to be honest, they don't look at them at all. So that being said, get into a good undergraduate school that have the classes that are required for medical school, and you can look those up online. Every medical school is different. Some hardly have any required classes, and some have a whole bunch of required classes. So each individual school is different, so you have to look into that. It's mostly, your science classes, and then some English and other classes like that. But the classes that you do need to take, because you will have to take the MCAT before you go into medical school, and that requires you to take basic chemistry, your basic biology, organic chemistry, as well as physics, and then your English courses to help with the verbal part of that. And I guess pretty much any school I can think of offers those. I guess maybe not trade schools or something like that, but pretty much under either public or private or even small schools usually offer those classes. So I guess just be aware of those. The main thing though is, looking back, is your study habits. If you can even start being aware of your study habits in high school, that will help you out so much in med school. Because yeah, med school is hard and everything, but I would say the people who start doing better and everything, those are the people who figured out how they best learn, how how well they can adapt to the different information. So even in high school, if you can figure out, oh, for this class I learn best like this, or I do really well taking notes in class and listening and then reviewing it. If you can start really figuring out what works best for you and then strengthening those, that would be really helpful. That'll help you out a lot in undergrad as well as in med school. Extracurriculars. So off kind of the whole grades and study things, extracurriculars are important. I'm sure you've heard that. So it's the different clubs you're in, volunteering, what you do if you work, or what you do for a job. Those are important. So even if you work at something completely different, I worked in a candy store, and I could still think of strengths that could maybe help me get into undergraduate or even into medical school. So just try to hone in on, being a hard worker, I guess being respectful. Those are all things you can do at any job. Learn how to work as a team, be responsible. I mean, those are basic things that you think, oh, any job, oh, I can't, medical schools aren't going to like that I worked at a candy store, and no, they really just want to see what you've learned from that experience. So it doesn't matter what jobs you're in, doesn't really matter what clubs you're in. What they like to see is what you're passionate about. So if you're really passionate, like my husband, he was really into sports, so he did sports all throughout high school. He did 3 sports in undergrad, so he was always doing that. So he didn't have the time to have health-related jobs or volunteer a bunch of hours, but what they like to see is how passionate you are about something. And that brings me kind of to the commitment aspect. They want to know if you're in 10 different clubs on your resume or on your application starting from high school, that doesn't mean anything to them. Are you in those 10 clubs you went to like 2 meetings for each? that means nothing. What they like to see is maybe 1 or 2 clubs or activities that you've been involved with, that maybe you've helped run, or what you've started with those, or you've been volunteering at your church for 7 years, you know, ever since you were in junior high or something. Those are things they like to see, and kind of what you've learned from that. So just being aware of those. And then the last thing is shadowing. If you have the opportunity as a high schooler to be able to shadow someone in the health-related field, I would absolutely try to do that. I mean, if you're in high school and know that you want to go into med school, if you want to be a physician, you know, that's great. Then shadow some physicians and everything like that. But I mean, the healthcare field, you have so many options of what you can do. You can be a physician's assistant, you can do nurse practitioner, you can be a nurse, you can be a rad tech, or you can go under radiology, and just do a whole bunch of things. So just if you're interested in healthcare, just knowing your options and knowing what's out there, and you know, maybe looking into how many more years of education is this, and what do they get to do, and that'll kind of help fine tune if you just know you want to go on the health field. There's so many options. But if you do know you want to go to medical school, try shadowing doctors. And it was great. I had one physician that I would shadow almost every year. I can't even tell you how many years I did that, and that was wonderful. But also try to shadow other physicians, because you might have one great experience with one and be like, yep, this is absolutely what I want to do. I'm just going to shadow this person. You don't know if you just really liked, you know, their style or how they worked with you. And same goes the other way. If you have one bad shadowing experience, it doesn't mean, oh, this is absolutely not for me, I can't do this. It could be just who you were shadowing, kind of how that worked out. So for shadowing, I definitely would maybe do something in primary care to see clinic side of things. Also try to do something in the hospital. I mean, you can be a hospitalist. That's different than clinic work. And also you could do surgery. All those are different. And you don't need to decide what kind of physician you want to be at that point. But just knowing what's out there, what are your different options, I think it's just really helpful. And then it kind of gives you a light at the end of the tunnel. I remember in high school and thinking, oh my goodness, I have 4 years of undergraduate left. I have 4 years of medical school. I have 3+ years of residency. It just seems like so many years. But shadowing and seeing patients and seeing, you know, what it is they do kind of gave me like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. This is really exciting. Someday I get to wake up and do exactly what this person's doing. So that really, really helps. And then having that long-term relationship with a physician is going to be really helpful when it comes to writing letters of recommendation, and also just your go-to person of, oh, I'm thinking about this, or, you know, how did this go for you, and things like that.